Morning, everybody, and thanks for watching. So, this is going to be a continuation of my previous video from 2 videos ago called The Christian Phony Dance Between Law and Grace. Just going into a few scriptures and going over more details, talking about the difference between law and grace that is so very important. Law had a very specific purpose when it came to the world. It wasn't meant to be followed by Israel or by anybody else. It was meant to point to the inability of human beings to accomplish God's righteousness. And it was meant to point people to their Messiah in the case of Israel, and in our case, to point us to grace, because we are never called to follow the law. And the law in general just produces more sin so that the grace through Jesus Christ can be revealed. But I'm going to take a look at Galatians chapter 3, verses 1 through 3 here. The Apostle Paul speaking. O foolish Galatians, and this is paraphrased from the concordant version. O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was graphically portrayed as crucified. I want to know just one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by works of the law or by believing what you heard? Are you so foolish, having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? And again, that's paraphrased, but it gets Paul's point here. So why did Paul remind the Galatians of Christ's crucifixion? Remember, a lot of these people were around when Jesus Christ was actually crucified, so they physically saw it. But my belief is that because Paul wanted to wake them up, because anyone who truly has grasped the horror and beauty of Christ's death should understand what that death achieved. It wasn't merely a symbolic gesture. It was the very means by which we receive the Spirit of God, the Spirit that Paul is talking about in these verses. And it's a fact that grace, and what Paul is getting at here, grace begins and ends with Christ. It doesn't begin with Christ and then we have to finish it by overcoming our own sin with Christ's help. It doesn't begin with us making a choice and then Christ finishes it off, or some mixture. Grace begins and ends with Christ alone. Our contribution to it has nothing to do with the completion of it. Paul isn't vague on this. He draws a stark contrast. You receive the Spirit by faith, not by keeping the law. He's already stated in Romans 3:20, the foundation being laid, no one will be justified by works of the law. That message doesn't change here. Again, so many in Christianity want to say that we receive grace from Jesus Christ just in order to get help with us overcoming the law by not sinning. Well, that is the law. Saying that you have to stop sinning in order to maintain salvation or get into salvation or complete salvation is law. Plain and simple. That's what law is. Not sinning. Because if you don't follow the law or you miss the law, that's sin. So not sinning is following the law. That doesn't mean that we should go on sinning, as we've talked about before. It's the grace of knowing what you have that causes you to change your life. That's how grace operates. But the minute you say that you have to stop sinning to complete your salvation, whether it's with the help of God or whether it's on your own, that is reverting back to law, and no one will be justified by works of law. So how can works of law or not sinning complete your salvation? It makes no sense, and that's what Paul is talking about here. When we receive God's Spirit, it's not so we can try harder to earn what Christ already died to give. It's so that we can understand and enjoy what has already been freely granted. As Paul wrote elsewhere in 1 Corinthians 2:12, we received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit from God, so that we may know the things graciously given to us by God. That's why we have the Spirit. This is such an overlooked verse, because we have the Spirit so that we may know the things that have been graciously given to us by God through Christ, not the things that we have to do in order to earn or maintain what Christ has done. The Galatians had believed this truth. Then something tragic happened. They reverted back to rules, back to striving, back to human effort. And Paul's words aren't gentle here. He calls this foolishness, because it is. And that's exactly what Christianity does today. They start in the Spirit, maybe. I would contend that maybe they never even start in the Spirit, because they never actually understand what has been done for them. They think that they have to make a choice, or they have to do something, or they have to repent, or they have to do some work of the flesh that if they do it, they'll be saved, and if other people don't do it, they're not saved. So that proves that they're earning it by their own righteousness. So I would, I guess, contend that they never even step into the proper Spirit, because they never truly understand what has been graciously done for them. But the Galatians here did start in Spirit, but now they're trying to complete it by maintaining law or by not sinning. And why would that complete something that you didn't get by doing that in the first place? So Paul's question cuts through time here, from back then 2,000 years ago to today. Having begun in the Spirit, are you now completed in the flesh? What's he saying? Simply this: if salvation began with Christ's work, why would you think it needs your work to finish it? That same warning applies today. Christians do claim Christ saved him. Christ saved me. Who saved you? Christ saved me. But then add, now I must fight sin with God's help. That sounds spiritual, but it's dangerously misleading. So let's break it down. If Christ made it possible for you to be saved, and now you must cooperate, strive, and prove yourself, then who ultimately finishes the work? You, right? You finish the work of salvation. And that is going against exactly what Paul is saying here. And that contradicts the gospel. It is not Christ plus your victory over sin. It is Christ alone. Full stop. When someone says you just have to overcome your sin with God's help, what they're really saying is you still need to complete your salvation in the flesh. That is a denial of the cross, even if it's wrapped in spiritual sounding language. So the gist of the matter is you don't fight for a gift that you already have. Jesus didn't come to be your co-pilot. He didn't come to assist you in overcoming sin. He overcame it. On the cross, Jesus said, "It is finished. It is finished." And he meant it. If you make this practical, it's humanly impossible to be truly motivated by grace while still believing you need to earn or prove your salvation. If you think the prize is still up for grabs, your behavior will always be driven by fear or performance, not by love and gratitude. For example, imagine this: a Christian says, "Christ saved me," but believes they must now overcome sin to prove they are truly saved. their focus inevitably is going to shift from Christ's finished work and toward their personal struggle. Their salvation becomes something to verify through their moral performance rather than something to celebrate as already won. And if that's the case, if you have to show, even if someone says, oh, if you're saved, you have to produce this fruit, then in order for a human being to go through this process, they are going to look for that fruit. And eventually, it's going to lead them to focusing on producing that fruit in order for them to be saved. If someone tells them, or if they truly believe that this fruit has to be there for you to prove your salvation, to prove that you are truly saved, or to prove that you're maintaining your salvation, then that fruit is always going to be something they look to, because they have to have it in order to be confident that they're saved. So it'll never be resting assured in what Christ completed on the cross. It'll be them making sure that they are producing that fruit. Whereas true grace understands what you have and it cannot be taken away, whether you produce fruit or not, whether you sin or not. Then when you know you had it, when you know you have this, then your motivation can be out of thanksgiving and love, because you know it can't be taken away. So your intentions and your fruit and your actions are pure out of thanksgiving for what Christ has done, not something that you have to do to earn what Christ has done. There's a very different thing in motivation. One is a phony motivation based on based on fear and fake love and performance and self-righteousness, which is the law, and not sinning. And one is driven, grace based on what Christ has done, is driven by thanksgiving, love, and purity. So grace changes everything. It removes the burden of earning. It removes the fear of failure. Only when you know that you already have the prize can your motivation flow from genuine love and thanksgiving, not obligation. Paul teaches that God gives us the Spirit as a gift, grounded, of course, in Christ's work, not ours. The Spirit is not a reward for effort. It is a seal of what Christ has already done. And so the Christian life isn't about finishing what Christ started. It's about resting in what he finished and living in a response to that reality, not trying to make that a reality by your own efforts. That's what the Spirit empowers us to do, not to complete our salvation, but to walk in awareness of it. Christ's death, burial, and resurrection are not merely tools to help you improve your life. They are your life. They are the source, the means, and the guarantee of your salvation, and nobody can take that away from you, because it wasn't up to you or anybody else to give it to you. It was based on Christ, and that never changes. Any attempt to maintain or perfect your salvation by your effort, even with God's help, is flesh. It denies the sufficiency of the cross. It places confidence back in man instead of God. It may sound holy, but it is as hollow as can be. So, in conclusion, any teaching that says you must overcome sin with Christ's help is a denial of what Christ has already done. It turns grace into wages, it makes the cross insufficient, and it robs you of the joy of salvation. Salvation is not Christ plus effort, it's Christ, period. When we live in light of that, not to earn it, not to prove it, but because it is ours, that's real grace. That's the Spirit, and that's the end of this phony dance. I have included the Substack article as well, in the description box if you guys want to read that as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.